testified against my 16-year-old daughter for assault and battery charges, and they really didn't let me tell the whole thing. And it's crazy how they cut you off and object to all kinds of stuff, and then they insinuated very strongly, like, that, well, actually, they just not insinuated, they flat out said with their closing argument that, I was completely making it up, I was a liar, and, in the end, she was found guilty, but given not one consequence. Whereas if I had not testified and it had not gone to trial, there would have been at least 6 months probation. But there could have been a guilty with probation and or other, and all I wanted was for my kids to know, for one, that they can't put their hands on me and hurt me the way their dad has without there being a consequence, which they're not learning. And I also wanted her to have like a safe adult, like a counselor or a probation officer or somebody but that's not happening. So it was like all for nothing, the whole thing. Everything I said was true. She had attacked me, she had moved me through into a different room, and we had done like there was so much force behind her pushing me, and then she finally got me into a corner after like another right angle turn up into a kitchen corner, and she proceeded to put both hands around my neck and shake me like with her full, force, and my 14-year-old son was pulling her off of me every 4 to 5 seconds, just constantly pulling her off, putting it on me, and she was, hitting me, punching me, clawing at me, trying to choke me, and everything in the world, because she had something incriminating on her phone that she didn't want me to find. And for the judge to say there was substantial evidence of guilt and to find her guilty of assault and battery, and then to go and proceed to give her no consequence. And then they treat me as if I'm this horrible person. They make me out to be a monster. But she's guilty, but not even anything. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, not even acquitted. Like, I think of the whole O.J. Simpson or something. And this is not murder. This is, I'm just saying, nothing. So what is it teaching? It's teaching someone who has been assaulted to not testify. It's teaching better things happen if you don't testify and you just, go a different route, and then at least she would have had 6 months probation. And then everything is really on a deeper level. It's painting a certain picture. That's my soon-to-be ex. Painting a certain picture to the attorney and to the child ad litem person that was assigned to the case, and wow, that ad litem person made me totally lose respect for those people. That lady was fucking wicked, the way she was speaking about me with certainty, as if she knew I was a liar, and I didn't tell any lie, and I don't lie. Like, everything I said was the truth, and it doesn't matter. So, and it's just like, on what level do I have to like let go and like pretty much like almost like lose my kids, like lose all of my kids? Is what it feels like. They tried to bring up things that were just not even pertinent. Like, I have tried to get some court things going after I couldn't afford my lawyer anymore, and I didn't know that if you have a court case in a certain district, like a certain whatever, like juvenile, and then there's like, I don't know, it's like, it was like I filed stuff going off of what the shelter told me to do, and it ended up being the wrong part of the court system, if that makes sense. And so I had to end up, a number of months later, when I found that out, I had to withdraw it. But the attorney on my daughter's side made it seem as if I took back wanting to like have custody of the kids, which is not what it is at all. And like just everything is like, I hate to see if it was like there was something like more important, like maybe people like testifying and it's like maybe a child sexually abused or someone has been murdered, like, I just see, like, wow, crystal fucking clearly, like, this is a joke. The justice system is a joke. And the only reason I really wanted there to be some consequences because my kids have turned, my older three who are not grown have turned violent to me in the last year, and you know, this is the third time. It's the first time that there's been any kind of court anything, but there's 2 other police incident reports. There's 3 times that she has physically assaulted me, but this was just by far the worst. Just
well, I stopped somewhere for a little while. I had been driving, so it was not a good audio, but I will say that the judge today was the judge who, when I shortly after the soon-to-be ex quit his full-time job and kind of like moved back into the house and kind of like displaced me because I wasn't willing to live with him, and he knew that, and he said he didn't care, and it's his house and his kids, and so that's why I've been at my mom's for a month and a half now, and even though she wants me to move out, but which is why I can't get a job, because I need to have somewhere that I can know that I can live first, so it's all this like ridiculousness. But I had tried to get a restraining order, and this was the same judge who not only denied the protective order, but after I read off 4 different accounts of violence toward me from the spouse, it does go back a number of years because he's been living 3 hours away for 2.5 years, and I have really tried to just avoid him when we switch with the kids. And so he was just kind of a real jackass the way that he spoke to me and the way that he referred to the entries of violence toward me as, quote, ancient. Well, that's ancient history. He was just very flip it, and like I perceive people's, like, I could tell his heart attitude on the matter was that he didn't care. And this was the same judge today who did not give any consequence to my daughter, and the things that she did to me were including putting both hands around me, shaking vigorously, trying to choke me. My 14-year-old was pulling her off of me constantly. We had traveled through into a different room. She was attacking me for about 10 to 12 minutes, and I barely was able to get away. But the kind of things that were being said today was, you know, oh, and so you're saying that she was violent and raging, and then you left her with your other children? And I tried to say that I left my 14-year-old in charge. I even told, because I was shaking. I was trying to flee and get just even down to the neighbor for my own safety. But all of it just being painted as if I'm like being a negligent parent. And I did, you know, it probably was like, you know, cut out of the testimony or whatever, but I did try to say, like, would you have had me to stay and be beaten? Like, she just made it sound like we were just all just sitting around having tea and coffee, and I'm just up and leaving my kids with a, you know, unsafe person. But it's like I was being physically beaten, and it's just, to me, the ludicrousy of the whole thing, for the judge to not give her any. I just, you know, if they can get probation, if I could have known that a guilty charge means nothing will happen, but if you don't testify, which obviously was more of a pain and difficult emotionally, right? More afterwards, just to think of all the ways that they're painting me to be. And really all this goes back to kind of being re-abused by the court systems. And I do have an old friend who, I don't really talk to her anymore, but she had given me a book when I initially left, and I'll have to make a note of the title. But it's like, I didn't think the book applied to me. I'm like, well, I'm not really dealing with that. And she said, well, you might need it in the future. And boy, was she right. Oh my gosh. It just talks about how, like, when you leave domestic abuse, that pretty much you're going to be re-victimized by the judicial system and or any, like, pretty much, especially when you're like, it has to do with like Christian circles. There's this, like, the way that they triangulate and they just use anybody. That's why all the pastors that I would have gone to for help all through the years eventually would have sided with, because it's like this way that they just, anybody who gets involved gets kind of like pulled over, or I almost say won over to their side. And it's like, yeah. And then the whole thing of like gaslighting and crazy making is like, these people today, these court officials, like, I can't believe the way that they were allowed to speak about me. And then when I tried to ask a question, like, the judge was just very, like, they were like nasty ugly. Like, I know they do this every day, but I don't do this every day, and I've never done this before. And so, you know, to me, I wanted to start at the initial onset of what was the problem, and I was cut off, and I was told just to start with, like, pretty much almost like just start with the violence and not what led up to. But then later the opposing side asked questions that would have been very clearly you know, divulged if I had been able to start like a sensible, rational person that I am and tell what happened. But instead everything was like bits and pieced together, kind of nonsense, you know. Like, if I had an experience, like, just what was allowed to be said was kind of difficult. But if I had just been able to say what had happened and how it started, and it's like all of this, I mean, and then my children and their dad is like, he's pretty much using them, is what it feels like. Oh, I think it's called Eyes Wide Open because it makes me think of that movie with Nicole Kidman, which I never watched because I think it was pretty risque. But that movie called Eyes Wide Shut. I think this book is called Eyes Wide Open. It is a Christian book, and I was a Christian when my old Christian friend gave it to me. She left domestic abuse, but they didn't have any children. But I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy that it's taking like 3 years to get the divorce. It's crazy that, you know, he can just quit his job and take all money away from me, even though I've been, you know, a stay-at-home mom for 27 years and had these 11 children with him. And it's just, to me, it's all crazy. It's crazy that I had to pay and get work done, which at least didn't, somebody had recommended a place that was apparently a lot more honest and told me like the minimum amount of work that could get done. And it was way, way less expensive than the other place had told me. So I did pay to get the work done on a card that's not in my name at all, not jointly, everything, because it's all about control. And I can see that clearly now. You know, I think when we were together, like, I didn't even question why the vehicles are only in his name, because it kind of goes back to, I mean, it might sound like naive, you know, being naive and maybe, but I didn't think of it as anything because I'm just not out to get people. And so why would I think this, you know, to me, it's kind of like a skewed way to assume, you know, but now it's like, he didn't care if it was going to be the $3,000 I was first quoted. He wasn't going to give me anything, and he didn't care if I didn't have a vehicle. I thought I was going to have to take an Uber to the court, and the court was, you know, this is an hour 15 minutes away from where I'm living right now with my mom. So like, but anyway, just like the judge not giving her any consequence. This is the same judge who scoffed basically and scorned my, you know, my journal entries, which is all I have to really try to show any of the physical violence that he has done to me through the years. And it's like, you know, my kids, into my grown kids and the way that they think about me, because 2 of them are still in the Mennonite church, which is very much like a cult. It really is. You know, you have to wear like certain kind of clothing. It's very, very restrictive. It's very, very oppressive, and you definitely lose your like your true self or any kind of they really look down on any kind of what do you call it? I want to say personality, but just like, I can't even think of the right word now. This is all just crazy. And you know, I have a 5-year-old, I have a 7-year-old, even my 9-year-old. I already have pretty much lost his little heart. Like, he's not really for me, you know. He sees the older ones, like he sees the teenagers, and there's a 12-year-old, so he's the next one above the 9-year-old, and I already don't have his heart. And it's like, the only ones that I really have had they still have a softness toward me is my 5 and 7-year-old. And now that they're living with their dad for, I mean, it's probably close to 2 months now, it just seems like the further and further that gap is becoming. And the last time I tried to see the kids, which is a couple weeks ago, the ex raged, and like, it was like old times. It was crazy. And so I was very triggered, and I mean, I want to see the kids, but I don't. It's like dealing with him. It's like, at what cost? And then when we talk about energy and kind of pulling our energy back, I really have felt like led to pull my energy back from this whole dynamic, because he feeds off of me. So me being reactive in any way, shape, or form, like the fact that he was raging, and it was upsetting, and it would be hard for it to not be upsetting. But it's like, it being upsetting to me was like fuel to his fire to continue. Like, in other words, it's like smugly making him happy. You know, it's like it's working. And so it's just a horrible situation. And then, you know, I guess I had kind of like, you know, it's funny, I had manifested a guitar, and I was kind of praying, talking to Spirit on the drive home before I was recording, like, you know, like, could I manifest some friends? Could I manifest, you know, I would have loved, there's, you know, maybe just a couple people that I could have thought of, maybe just one that doesn't know me that well, but maybe someone could have, who knew about me going today, could have taken off work and gone with me. But it's like, just to do all of this by myself. And I am strong, I'm strong as fuck, but like, when does my life get to move from being like completely alone and I don't mean my mom, like my mom, again, there's absolutely no thought of my mom or any family members going with me to support me today, but it would have been nice for someone to have been there. And another trick that I feel kind of was like played on me was because, you know, I've never done this before, right? So like, my name was called by someone who was dressed in like, you know, dressed up even more than me. And so I went and ended up being the opposing counsel, but I didn't know that. I thought it was something called victim witness, which they did a very poor job. They weren't not supportive of me at all today, but they were supposed to be. And I said to the person I thought was the victim witness person, it was a lady, I said, I thought I was going to hear from y'all yesterday, because that's what I had been told months ago. And she said, well, not for me. And this is after she brought me into a mediation room, which I didn't know was called a mediation room, but it's like, she brought me into a room, we were sitting down, and because I am more like, I just, you know, start talking to people, I was like, I thought I was going to hear from you yesterday. And then that's the only way that she finally disclosed to me who she was, and she was the opposing counsel. And I did kind of have like this hesitation, and I probably should have just gotten up right then, but I ended up talking with her for a couple of minutes, like maybe a couple sentences, and then I said, like, is this typical for, you know, I don't have like representation in here with me, is this typical? And she got angry and started getting up in like a huffy way, and I knew that I had called her out on like, but to me, if the victim witness people had done their job, I would have already been united with someone to kind of be in my corner, or if I had a friend of any sort to go to support me, then anyway, you know, it should have been more like, hi, I am, you know, representing your daughter, would you be willing to speak with me for a few minutes? And then I would have flat out said no. But this was more like, my guard was down, and I thought it was someone who was to be helping me through that's called victim witness, and yet that person didn't, even show their face until like 20 minutes later. And then I tried to tell them what had happened. And so I just feel like I kind of got played. And once again, when you haven't done this before and you don't really know, like if someone who like, it wasn't like the police officer who called you to the courtroom, but I mean, it was a person in, dressed to the nine and calling my full name. And then we're going into the doors that lead to the courtroom, but then we go off to a little shoot off door to the side. So like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I just feel like kind of like I was manipulated somewhat. And so that was before the trial. And all that she was really trying to do is to get me to not do this today. And now if she had said, if she's found guilty, nothing will happen, which ended up being the case, then I would have said, okay, well then I don't want to testify. Yes, we'll do the 6 months probation and her having to write like a poem and write an apology letter, even though she's not sorry. And this daughter is very angry at me. She's angry at me for testifying. And, she's not in the least bit sorry. And then all the stuff that's being, I wasn't there for all of it because they had me leave when the police officer who had filed this charge was not filed by me. It was filed by the police officer who arrived on the scene. And so he was on my side, and I was not present when he gave his testimony. And so therefore, for whatever reason, they didn't have me present when my daughter gave her testimony. But like, there's just a lot of lying and I'm being made out to be a monster. And yeah, like, why is my life like this where, it's like, it's hard to not slip back into some kind of a victim mindset because it's like, this is fucked up. I don't have even a friend to like go and like just even be that moral support, even if they couldn't have entered into the courtroom, which I'm not sure if they could have. Like, I don't have anybody in my corner and I just have to like always be stronger than everybody and be okay with whatever, be okay that she was found guilty, which at least they found her guilty. It could have been not guilty but at least guilty, but then nothing. And so it's like the injustice of it all and just the fucked upness, if that's a word, of not having any support. And it's not because I haven't asked. It's not because I haven't been candid. And maybe I've scared off a couple of male, males who've been interested in me. I'm sorry if I scared you off by, bringing up real and difficult things that are happening in my world. And, I feel like the things that are happening in my life and happened for a long time are so high level to like be doing it alone, but other people might be scared to like maybe go and like sing karaoke on stage without like a friend going up there with them or something that's like so ridiculously little, something like, you know what I mean? Like, and we all like to have moral support and to have emotional support in your life isn't wrong to desire. And it's like, I just have to keep doing everything alone. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. It really is. It's like, we're there humans who care. I'm very open, maybe too open. But it's not because I haven't asked or made known the difficult things going on in my life that I don't have any support. And if me being real scares off people, then I guess, you're not my people, obviously. And just to have some kind of support, just someone in my corner, even a friend, doesn't have to be anybody who is interested in me romantically, but like just nobody. And it's like, okay. And so it's like, what today held for me? I mean, I was, I don't really call it praying, but I was like talking to spirit. I was like, okay, can I manifest some people in my life? Because like I've been wanting to and trying, right? But then I manifested the guitar in one day, right? The same exact model that I have on my Amazon cart, the exact one, and on the military discount day. Like, what about people? It's not because I haven't asked, and not because I haven't been real and been vulnerable, been honest. People only seem to want fair weather friends. That's what it seems like to me.